Waywire is a personalized news service that is aiming to amplify the voice of the YouTube generation. With Waywire, you can shoot and publish your own news reports and share and respond to original and syndicated content. Cory Booker, could you tell us a little bit about your vision for Waywire and what you hope it accomplishes?
Well, sure. On a very functional level, it's solving for what I think you've written about is the discoverability and shareability challenges with YouTube. It's this phenomenal network that was started, but finding content, sharing content, really exploring the content that really matters to you was something that we saw that really needed to be done in an elegant, rich, even delicious way, but more important, also allow users to create content. And so that's on a very functional level what we're trying to solve for. But for me, as a guy who's watched sort of an oligarchy of media control voice, control message on the national stage, what got me really excited and basically the purpose by which I wanted to found this company with some other amazing people was to solve for that. I'm a big believer that the power of the people is greater than the people in power. And that if we don't find ways for the real voices, the real authentic elements of our culture really begin to penetrate that oligarchy of news, media, and information, then we're going to be stuck with the kind of politics we have today. And real social change happens when grassroots people, when everyday Americans, I've seen it in the civil rights movement, I've seen it going back to the suffragette movement, I've seen it even in current movements like SOPA and other things that have happened more recently. If we can find ways to elevate those voices, we're going to see a much faster changing America that's going to better reflect our values, our common values and ideals.
So you're talking about trying to give a voice to people. I think one of the problems people might see in things like Twitter is that if you start and you don't have a large follower base, you're worried that you really might not make an impact, or you're just talking into a black hole. Is Waywire designed to help move around that so that you can give people who don't have existing audiences a voice?
Yeah, well, first of all, just let's understand, even finding things that matter to us. When I approach the large utilities in the social sphere, there are locations to go to try to find things that matter. It's a little hard to navigate. But by being part of the social network we're creating here, that creates arteries, you're going to be able to find information that matters to you, more consume, more educate yourself, more empower yourself as a consumer. And as you contribute to that, you're going to be able to link into these arteries and get your message out. Let's just take practical examples with Hurricane Isaac. You could go through the normal cable world, and by the way, less and less of the millennials, Generation Ys, or even have cable. Or you could have gone on to Waywire and looked at the hashtag Isaac Waywire and see real people, their videos, see what's actually going on. The voices of the people dealing with this crisis are now elevated in a way that they weren't before. And so whether your issue is bullying, marriage equality, aspects of technology, or even in my world, the voices of my residents. I had a resident, somebody sent me a wire, a short little video of what was going on. Now, as a elected leader, I can see, hear, and even see around their own neighborhood about what's going on in a short way. And the consumption of video right now, in this video literate generation, is just expanding, and the digital native generation is coming like a tidal wave. This is the way we're going to start to consume information, better navigate the social world, but more importantly, it's clearly the stage is set for a new type of impact, for a new type of change, a new type of power that's going to emerge.
So you discussed trying to change the way that people are consuming their news. It's very hard. I'm sure you mentioned it's very tough to change people's behaviors, especially in something as ingrained as how people get their news. We've been reading newspapers forever, and even with the shift online, a lot of it is still very text-based, and you guys are working towards a video network. Could you tell me what are some of the challenges that you guys see, and what are you learning about how startups like Waywire can try to change interactions and change behaviors in things that are very well established?
Well, what I've learned is there are these huge utilities in the social sphere that are very powerful, and we all rely on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. And the key is not to try to create a product that's going to muscle them out of the way. What we want to do is very elegantly lay on top of these platforms to use people's already existing social networks to give them a richer experience on the web that better helps them to discover content, better helps them to share it with their friends. And then when they feel passionate, something really matters to them, for them to actually lay it on that and contribute to that voice. And again, I keep bringing it back to my reality that I live in. You know, I was on the scene of a bad car accident in Newark. I jumped out along with an amazing guy who happened to be driving to work for our prosecutor's office. And then as we were dealing with the gentleman on the street, we looked up and there was a line on the sidewalk of people with their phones. They were out filming and picturing that what was going on. Well, I got my car afterwards, everything, once we got the man secure, I thought to myself, what happens to that content? And the problem is that content gets stuck, and it doesn't have a way of sort of circulating throughout the social stream in a way that would begin to elevate that voice, that video, and what's going on. And so we're really trying to sit on top of, in a very elegant way, to really supercharge these large titles and give people more context to the content, help them discover and share it. And then what I love about it is, and I've seen the genius of ordinary people, when you give them the power to easily, and this is part of our alpha unveiling right now, we're really inviting everyone today to come on alpha. Part of it is a mobile phone app where you can now just take this front-facing camera, listen for a second, and record that, and instantly with a click of a button, upload that into a social, not to a location where people have to come to, but into your social stream so it gets it out there.
It's really important. You guys can go and check out the Wire right now. The site has just opened its alpha, so you can sign up and register to start sharing and responding to news yourself. The one thing you talked about was people standing in a line, all taking photos or videos of this crash and the aftermath. Are you worried that people might be just trying to observe and there's sort of a voyeuristic element where people are more interested in observing and capturing than actually helping and participating? Or do you view that, the capturing, as participation?
You know, I view it as participation, and I really think what sort of hurts about our democracy right now is we talk about these issues, joblessness in America, lack of access to health. What it's like for a guy, for a family who's at home with their wage earner in Afghanistan. This sort of real, authentic experience we're all having every day. We're not getting those voices into the mainstream, so we begin to understand in a much more textured, authentic, nuanced way what's really happening in our country. So to me, it's not just witness, it's voice. And so whether you're in the middle of a hurricane, or for me, I've used social media in a powerful way to deal with crises from snowstorms, frankly, to crime. Once you give somebody the ability to amplify their voice in the social stream in an authentic way, I would be very interested to hear more from people who are being bullied in high school if they had that tool about really what's going on. I'd be very interested to hear from someone who's struggling with a lack of access to health care or family planning or Planned Parenthood or what it's meant to them. And as a guy who's actually in the political sphere, in a day of where you see that money's becoming more powerful, Citizens United, it's really creating more domination and voice from a narrow field. What I really get pulled into this is that, hey, wait a minute, I believe in the First Amendment, and if you believe in the First Amendment, there's humility in that. It's actually not recognizing that you have the right to speak, but that not other people have a right, but they have something to say. And we should give value in the marketplace of ideas to that. Well, if you have a few people, oligarchies or others that are dominating that market space, shutting out these voices, that's not a great America. So me and my team said, let's elevate people. Let's give them an ability to find what matters to them, to discover it, to share it, but more importantly, to amplify their voices, to let them share what's going on in their life, what they're passionate about in the social sphere as well.
You've had some experience, a lot of experience trying to create a greater America, but in your unique position as both a sitting politician and an entrepreneur, are there insights that you've brought from politics, from trying to convince people to vote for you, to trying to convince people to download your app?
Well, look, it's wonderful to be in the entrepreneur space, and for me, first of all, private sector work I realize is challenging. It is more difficult than government work. It's more difficult. Well, there are so many rules and regulations. My startup doesn't have tenure rules and things like that, which means it's a very performance-based group of people that we have, and we have an urgency about us. There's a balance, the sectors can learn from each other. But for me, it's really wonderful to understand that we need to stop looking at America as these segments. There is the public sphere, there's a nonprofit sphere, there's an entrepreneurial sphere. really we're all much more interwoven and interconnected than we actually understand. And so for elected officials now, I actually had this conversation before I went on yesterday on This Week with Stephanopoulos. You know, there was Rand Paul, a guy in a different party than me, and I was talking to his team about social media. And it was amazing to me because I'm not threatened by Rand Paul. In fact, Whitewater is very bipartisan. We follow around a rising congressman, Republican conventions, Democrats. To me, I don't care. What I want more people to do is to have their voice, because no side has a monopoly on the truth. But if we as residents are out there looking to be truth tellers, looking to find the good ideas, partisanship is going to fall in this country. What will elevate is a powerful pragmatism. And so for me as a politician, I realized I can't just stay in this sphere or look at myself as just a government worker. The first awakening I had really was on social media with Twitter and Facebook, where I realized, hey, wait a minute, I'm a syndicator as well. In fact, my million-plus total Twitter followers mean that more people are going to be looking at my tweets than look at the print version of my state's largest newspaper. And so I need to start looking at myself not just as a government official, but I need to start looking at myself in a much more broader way that represents the multifaceted nature of all of us. Look, the collaborative consumption that the previous panel was talking about, hey, we all can be job creators through that. We all can fuel our economy in new ways from that. If you start looking at technology as a way to empower the multifaceted aspects of your being, you begin to empower yourself to make change in different ways. And so to me, as a guy who wants to see the future of politics, wants to do something about campaign finance reform or activating people to vote, thinking of myself in terms of an entrepreneur, of a digital architect, as a syndicator of content, as well as a guy that has to get my sewer system running better than it is right now and create more efficiencies in my police department. If I think of myself in those four ways and use the new tools of technology, we can change America at a far more rapid pace than is being changed right now. If Martin Luther King had Twitter and Facebook, because he was a master of the media tools that were there now. If you look at the Montgomery bus boycott, or more importantly, the protests in Birmingham, it wasn't until through the Children's Miracle, these two great actors, James Bellow and Dorothea Cotton, were geniuses in what they were able to do to attract traditional media there and awaken the nation to what's going on. But it was a slow process. It was a difficult process. Now there could be a mother sitting at home, an entrepreneur from home, who sees something, finds something she's passionate about, and she could shape the entire American electorate by letting her voice be heard and by creating movement around what she's passionate about. These are powerful tools. We, as a country, have an obligation to use and engage with.
So you're talking about interweaving technology more into the political space and any space that's really trying to galvanize people and get people to work for a better life for their community. And you mentioned you think that Martin Luther King would have been a master of Twitter. Now, what do you think that these great heroes from American history would have done with these mediums? And what are some of the insights that you've learned from your usage that you can tell other people, other leaders, you know, if you had to give them one thing, what would you tell them to do?
Well, I would tell them to dive in. I mean, ultimately, my foray into social media has helped me become a more effective public servant. So now, and more importantly, the ability to crowdsource my city. So now I find out about water main breaks before my water department does. I find out about traffic lights and potholes before my engineering department does. I find out about the real voice of my people and their concerns, whether they're wiring me a quick 30-second video and showing me something in their neighborhood or taking a picture of it. It's a powerful tool. And so if you can figure out a way to create a more instant connection with your constituency, it's a great thing. And I'll be honest with you. There's a growing wave of cynicism in America about politics. People are discouraged, turned off, because of the few voices, the oligarchy of voices that they hear from. What social media does is we really dive in and don't just use social media as a way of saying, I will be appearing at the TechCrunch conference, watch. If you actually use social media to tell the truth and let people see you for who you are. So if my Twitter followers see me at midnight succumbing to the lure of the two most seductive men in America, Ben and Jerry. My Twitter followers see my awful, corny jokes. You know, I might come off here and say that I was jealous of your hair as a guy who doesn't have it. They say, learning that your elected officials are human just like you. that they're authentic people who just are trying to make a difference. I think erodes cynicism and makes us realize, hey, I not only want to connect to that guy or that woman, but I want to be a part of helping them on what they're really trying to do in this world. Because this is a threat to our democracy right now, an enduring threat to our democracy. If we don't find a way to use this amazing technology, and King said this in more eloquent ways, if we can find a way to create something like an atom bomb, but we haven't figured out a way to educate a child. If we can't find ways to use this technology to make true on the promise of our nation. There are kids in Newark and Oakland this morning that are getting up and are swearing this profound pledge. Like I said in my connection speech, it was in my DNC speech, it's like a call to the conscience of our country when they say that we are one nation of liberty and justice for all. Well, we haven't gotten there yet. We haven't gotten there yet. And ultimately, technology has to be a purpose. It's amazing to me how millennials coming up right now, even those that want to go into the private sector, the overwhelming majority of them are saying they want to be a part of organizations, public sector organizations, private sector organizations, that have a purpose, have a mission driven to make the world a better place. And that's got to be what we are about as a nation, ultimately. It is figuring out using all the tools necessary, like great activists of the past, to advance this nation towards our common goals and aspirations. And that really is why a sitting mayor decided to become a technology entrepreneur, is because I believe that what's going on in this conference right now, all the things going on in America, that people who want to disrupt our democracy, that people who want to hack our politics, those are the people that aren't going to just sit back and complain about this democracy. I'm getting caught up in what many Americans, too many Americans rather, I call it a state of sedentary agitation, where they just complain about what is. Well, it's going to be the disruptors that jumping into the marketplace of ideas, jumping into the trenches of our democracy and saying, no, I'm not going to accept it as it is. I'm going to disrupt our democracy, I'm going to hack our politics, and have it better reflect the purpose of the people.
I think you've done a phenomenal job of disrupting the cynicism. And one of the hallmark ways that you've done that is by bringing, being a bridge between the technology sector and the philanthropy towards politics and towards civic engagement and improving people's communities. Most famously, you helped work with Mark Zuckerberg to bring in a $100 million donation to the Newark public school system. Could you tell me a little bit about the process of bringing that in and how you think things like that can disrupt people's cynicism?
Well, and I say this very sincerely, Mark Zuckerberg is an American hero. And not just because he created a platform that I now can use to better serve my people, but he's constantly thinking about systems and bringing excellence to scale. And we've proven now in America that a school anywhere in this country, serving any kind of kids, can be incredibly successful. We haven't figured out a way to grow that to scale. And this is the biggest threat to our democracy. America cannot be the leading democracy if we have a lagging school system. We can't be the #1 economy if we have the number 15 or 20. So here's a guy like Mark Zuckerberg who says, you know what, I'm going to do what I do in the private sector. I'm going to find a group of good leaders, and I'm going to invest in them in solving this problem. He already has helped us to expand the school day in the city of Newark, helped us find some of the best, most encouraging models of educational excellence and grow them and expand them. And that's what I love about when I come out here. I gave a speech at Stanford last year, and right before I was about to go on the stage, I leaned over to another American hero and dear friend of mine, Lorraine Jobs, who is going into the difficult, unglamorous world of wrestling to improve education. She's amazing. And I say to her, what should I say? And she says, Cory, what you should say is, here we are in Silicon Valley, and she named a specific high school in San Francisco. How can we have a high school like that has maybe 10 or 11 of their kids college ready? When you have all around them the best minds, the best innovators, the best creators possible, how can we allow that still to happen? Because in that high school is a future Steve Jobs. In that high school is a future person to solve and cure diseases. The greatest natural resource this nation has is not oil or gas, it's the genius of its people. And that's what's about, that's what we have to be about, is literally. And so Mark Zuckerberg, Lorraine Jobs, jobs. There's so many great innovators out here who are taking that same discipline that they found for success here in this great region of the world and are applying it to America's most difficult, complicated, inglamorous problems. And that, for me, those folks deserve standing ovations just for that.
I so appreciate you bringing this new, fresh appeal to democracy and to really changing America for the better. And I just have one last question. So you've worked with Mark Zuckerberg and the technology sector, and it seems like every entrepreneur wants to be the next Mark Zuckerberg. And you were at the GNC and you spoke in representation of Barack Obama, and it seems like a lot of Democrats are really hoping to see his light come to them and then be able to embody his ideals and maybe become the next Barack Obama. Mayor Cory Booker, would you prefer to be the next Mark Zuckerberg or the next Barack Obama?
Life is too short to be busy about trying to be somebody else. Abraham Lincoln said it very simple. Everyone, he said, man, I'm going to change it. He said, everyone is born an original, but sadly most die commons. This conference This conference of community needs to be about living your originality. The hallmark of our company is to find something you're passionate about and be the voice of it. We need everyone. As it says in a great song from the African American tradition, we need everyone to lift every voice and sing the chorus of conviction, the truth of what we are about as a people.